Hello everyone, this is Tim and my name is Peter and welcome back to another episode of the OC Show. I think this is already episode 6, so we're advancing quite fast in this season. First things first, about the Q&A.
Yeah, so never forget all those shows have a Q&A attached and a live one for the matter, so you can actually join in for the live Q&A every time for each episode, and this time we will be in Europe. So it's going to be a very special Q&A because the Europe guys will be able to tune in for once. And it's going to take place on Saturday, so Saturday, April 4th at 10 p.m. Europe time. That's going to be 4 p.m. Eastern time in the US and around 3 a.m. if you're on the GMT plus 8 Taipei time zone.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So let's get started. First off, we have to talk about Nvidia's new GeForce GTX Titan X graphics card, which is by far the most powerful graphics card currently on the market. And it was launched last week, and we saw a bunch of results already being put up. I think the most important ones are actually coming from Kingpin, who's working for EVJ. He's already cranked the card up to over 2 gigahertz. I saw a screenshot of 2.1 gigahertz.
Yeah, 2.1, yeah.
Of course, it's with liquid nitrogen, and the scores are pretty phenomenal. We see 11.6K single GPU Firestrike Extreme, and then we see a 24K regular Firestrike. From an HWBOT point of view, it's very important, to emphasize that these are global first place results, so not world records. We've seen some people kind of being confused about the correct terminology, but the world record is the absolute highest score in any benchmark. So, for example, the highest score ever achieved in Firestrike Extreme, whereas a global first place is the highest score within a global category. For example, 1 GPU, 2 GPUs, and so on. So
right now, most of the records are still 4-way 980 at the moment.
Yeah. We haven't seen any 4-way Titan X results yet in the database, which is very understandable given the cost of one of those graphics cards. We've seen a couple of dual GPU runs though, and it's pretty cool because the early adopters can even take these global first place results and the massive amount of points attached to them on air cooling. So you had a guy from the US, I think his name is GPM Boy. Yep. He took his very first global first place ever.
Well, it's always a good occasion on that occasion when there's a new card to try to get it as soon as possible and take the time advantage over those that don't have it.
Especially because now the cards are so incredibly powerful. I mean, beating LN2 cards, LN2 GTX 980s on air cooling with just a reference stock cooler, maybe a modified BIOS, but that's fairly impressive. And if we look at the very, very new Titan X, then we have something that is completely old school on the other hand as well. We already talked about it a little bit in our previous episode. It's called the Old School is Best School competition.
Yeah. So back in the last episode, we didn't show you much actually about that one because we didn't really had any graphics designs or anything like that. We just barely had the name for the competition, but now we have the whole page up on OC Sports, so you can find out about the rules, but also what the page looks like. You can have a look and probably prepare for the competition because some of you might have to actually start to look for hardware.
So the competition it's 5 rounds of each 2 months, but they kind of run concurrently. So the first round starts on April 1st and ends by the end of May, whereas the second round starts on May 1st. So you always have 2 months to set your scores, but in the middle of each round, another round starts as well.
Okay.
It gives you enough time to find the hardware, scout at eBay.
Prepare, find out the old mods again, things like that. And so this competition is a series, so what does that mean?
It means that we'll have a dedicated ranking page for all of these rounds to combine into one big ranking. Pretty much like we have for the Rookie Rumble already.
Yeah, so that ranking will be seasonal based, like everything on OC Sports?
The ranking will be for the 2015 season, and then we'll add up all the points that you get in the different rounds of the Old School is Best School competition.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool, eh? Alright, so moving on to the next topic, actually I just wanted to ask you how was OC Sports doing, because I saw there was a few updates pushed to the thing, and just wanted to know what was that about?
We do a lot of maintenance on the OC Esports website. I think any web developer will know that whenever you launch a software project, there's bugs to be squashed all the time. So we uploaded or we pushed a lot of the bugs to our production, and that was basically what it was about.
Okay, well, that's cool.
not a lot of new features, but a lot of bugs squashed.
All right. So talking about new features and new things, there's a lot of OC events coming up. The first one is the World Tour, which we are going to attend actually next week, end of next week. For that, we will be in Europe. We will be in France at the Gamers Assembly in Poitiers, which is the largest LAN party in France. Going to welcome 2,000 gamers, about 11,000 visitors. And right now we're in the planning for being on stage for the opening ceremony to spread a bit of love about overclocking on stage. So it's gonna be quite a fun time. The Gamers Assembly is a very social event, so a lot of fun is to be expected for that one. But there's also other fun coming up after that.
It's in French.
Yeah.
Very difficile pour moi.
Très difficile.
That means it's very difficult for me.
Yeah. Well,
After the Gamers Assembly, we have 2 more events lined up as well. We already mentioned Asus ROG Camp in the last episode, I think.
So that's one in Germany, right?
Yeah, check that one out in the last episode. As a very last addition, or a very late addition to our Europe roadmap schedule, we have an MSI OC Academy in the UK lined up as well, the weekend after the ROG Camp. It's pretty interesting. We've seen the OC Academies in France and before actually already in Belgium with Tones. So what's the plan actually at this event?
The guys from Team GB, so Team Great Britain, are behind that event. And for this, they partner up with mainly MSI as a main sponsor. And they've also partnered with a bunch of other industry partners for the rest of the hardware. And basically, they rent out a pub, if I'm correct. And for one long weekend, so it's over 3 days, they have 20 spots for people that want to come. There's 1,000 liters of LN2. You can pretty much bench whatever you like, but there's also a competition proposed there, as well as some very interesting 1 versus 1 kind of situation things. So that's going to be quite interesting. And I know they partnered up with OCN as well as OCTV for the stream. So there's going to be some interesting stuff coming up. There's not all the details yet, so I can't tell you everything, but it's going to be interesting.
That means there's going to be a lot of LN2 put to good use in Europe in the next couple of months, like 3 events in 3 different weekends. It's a very hectic schedule for travel as well. I'm passing by in Belgium as well for 2 days every week, I think.
Chocolate shopping and cheese shopping in France, and I don't know, beer shopping in Germany, and what could we get from the UK? Not too sure.
Fish and chips.
Fish and chips. Let's get some fish and chips back.
So, one more event that we need to talk about is something that doesn't happen in Europe, but it's happening in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. Again, by the Jagat Review guys. They're very active.
Yeah, they're very active, and so their new plan for this year. So I don't know if you guys follow Jagat Review, but now so the JagatOC Team, which is the Jagat Review overclocking team, pretty much now have their standalone website. And this year they're going to make a big push into overclocking in general as a team, but also educating more people and eventually getting more people into their team, right? And so what they are doing right now is they are touring around universities in Indonesia to basically preach overclocking to the students there. So they have full classes of students that are registered. I think there's registration online or something like that. And people can come there and they are taught the basics of overclocking. And knowing Alva, I think it's much more than just the basics, actually.
It's preaching and teaching.
Yeah, and it's probably very, very in-depth stuff. So we can expect to see some of those guys eventually at the AOCT this year, or at some of the other competition like the TOOC. Yes, that's the one. And probably also maybe some guys at Computex, why not?
Well, we've already mentioned this in our AOCT coverage a long time ago, that the guys are very, very passionate and very, very interested in overclocking, and we see people going from AOCT in 1 year to even attending the MOA finals, the grand finals in the year after. So I think the Jagat Review team is doing a very good job educating locals on overclocking, and they share with passion. And I think, if you share something with passion, people will pick up on it, especially if they're already a little bit interested in it.
Yeah, and I think the team of Alva and his friends that are also doing all those workshops extremely passionate. So
Oh yes.
they definitely have the right groove for it.
Yeah. So this was it for episode 6. Can you remind me again when the Q&A is? I missed last episode.
All right, so Q&A. So we are flying to Europe in a few days. So we're landing in France, and the Q&A is on Saturday at 10 p.m. from the Gamers Assembly in France, from the HWBOT World Tour Stop Europe. And that's going to be 4 p.m. for the guys in the US on the Eastern time zone, a little bit around probably like 11 a.m. for the guys on the other side, Pacific time zone. And then 3 a.m. for the guys that are going to stay around Hong Kong or Taiwan or, yeah.
10 p.m. is past my bedtime.
Don't matter. We'll do it without you, like every time.
All right. Till next time.
Ciao.